So you woke up as usual, you went to the gym, and as a daily routine, you took a shower, ready to start your day. You jump in your car and try to log into the rideshare driver app, but the screen hangs. You realize you've lost access. You receive an email saying you are blocked off from the app. No warning, no human to talk to, just fired by a machine. Think back through your entire career. Have you ever had a human boss that was just completely, utterly impossible to read? The kind of manager who communicates entirely in heavy sighs and vague emails. You never knew if you were getting promoted or fired. But as stressful as human bosses are, you eventually figure them out. You adapt. You build a mental map of their personality. You realize, okay, Dave is just grumpy before his 10 a.m. coffee. Because they're human. They have tells. You can negotiate with a bad mood. But what happens when your boss doesn't drink coffee? What happens when your boss doesn't sleep, doesn't stress, and doesn't have a face? What happens when your manager processes literally a billion data points a second to evaluate your performance? Welcome to algorithmic management. This isn't sci-fi. It is happening right now. It is dictating the lives of millions of gig workers, warehouse employees, and corporate staff. And it's creating a massive, invisible psychological crisis. Taking orders from software actually breaks the evolutionary toolkit we use to survive. For millions of years, our physical survival depended entirely on predicting the behavior and reactions of other humans in our tribe. It's called theory of mind. We are constantly reading intricate social cues, a raised eyebrow, a shift in posture, the tone of a voice. Even if a manager has total power over you, the relationship is still embedded in a human context. There is room for friction. You can negotiate. If you're late because your kid was sick, you can explain the situation and rely on human empathy. But corporations have always tried to strip the messy human stuff out. 100 years ago, we had Frederick Taylor and scientific management. Taylorism broke jobs down into tiny, measurable tasks with a stopwatch. He wanted humans to act like mathematically perfect cogs in a machine. But at least you could game the system when it was run by a guy with a clipboard. Algorithmic management removes the human entirely. The app tells you where to go. It watches your GPS, your braking patterns, your customer ratings. It actively evaluates and disciplines you. You can't explain context to an app. The power is completely asocial. It silently processes your data and spits out a consequence. So why is this worse than simple if-then code? Because modern management uses complex machine learning models, the dreaded black boxes. This creates a scientific crisis known as the Resilience-Predictability Paradox. It's the core reason algorithmic management feels like a nightmare. Corporations want systems that are resilient. AI that can instantly balance 10,000 drivers, weather updates, and demand surges without breaking. To get that resilience, the AI builds its own internal logic, patterns so complex and multidimensional that human brains literally cannot comprehend them. Here's the paradox. The algorithm becomes a black box even to the people who programmed it. The mathematical pathways are just too entangled. As the algorithm becomes more resilient for the corporation, its internal logic becomes opaque. Higher resilience equals lower predictability for you. For a worker, it feels like living in a funhouse mirror. Let's say you work at a massive automated warehouse. You have a scanner on your wrist tracking your time-off task. Any second you aren't actively scanning an item is logged against you. One week, you hit 98% efficiency. The next week, you do the exact same thing at the exact same speed, but your score drops to 82%. Why? Because the algorithm shifted expectations in real time based on 1,000 hidden variables. Maybe overall volume dropped, so the baseline was raised. And nobody tells you this. Your human supervisor just sees a red light. If you ask why, they say, I don't know, the system says you're underperforming. It's like playing a video game where the rules change every time you level up, but there's no tutorial, and if you lose, you can't pay rent. The algorithm is perfectly agile for the corporation, but for the worker, predictability drops to zero. You are trapped in the paradox. How are scientists studying this? Enter algorithmic sociology. Researchers are looking at how algorithms don't just measure society, they actively rearrange it. It starts with threshold models, the mathematics of peer pressure. It's how humans decide to act based on what the tribe around them is doing. But these deeply ingrained social mechanics completely short-circuit when you inject a black box AI. It leads to the foresight endangerment problem. Foresight is our ability to predict consequences. If I touch a hot stove, I get burned. Because we have foresight, we can make strategic choices. But when managerial power is handed to a black box, that connection is severed. The rules shift in ways you can't see. Your foresight is literally endangered. You can no longer predict the consequences of your actions. What got you praised yesterday might get you fired today. Psychologically, this is devastating. Have you ever heard of learned helplessness? The famous experiment where dogs get shocked randomly and eventually just give up? Learned helplessness occurs when you experience unpredictable negative stimuli you can't control. Eventually, the brain just stops trying to find a solution. Algorithmic management is inducing mass learned helplessness in the workforce. When workers can't predict what will happen, they stop trying to optimize their lives. They become hyper-anxious and paranoid. They aren't acting with agency anymore. They are just flinching in the dark, hoping the machine doesn't penalize them. It strips away your ability to plan your life. If you don't know the metrics judging you, how can you feel secure enough to take out a mortgage? The corporation gets total agility and stability. The worker absorbs all the chaos. It is a massive transfer of risk from the company to the human. But wait, there is an ethical argument for this. Humans are inefficient. We need sleep. We get distracted. During massive chaos, human management is too slow. But beyond efficiency, the biggest defense of AI bosses is fairness. By stripping out flawed, biased humans who play favorites. The algorithm doesn't care about your background. It is blind to office politics. It judges you strictly on the math. The ultimate objective meritocracy. That is exactly how these systems are sold to corporate boards. But sociologists will tell you it's an illusion. Algorithms suffer from bias laundering. An algorithm learns from historical data. And who generated all the historical data for the last 100 years? Flawed, biased humans. If an AI trains on decades of biased hiring data, it learns that only one specific profile equals success. It secretly finds mathematical proxies to filter everyone else out. It's infinitely more dangerous. Because if a human boss is openly unfair, you can catch them. You can report them to HR. You have a target. But if the algorithm is unfair, the company throws its hands up. Hey, the computer made the optimal choice. The bias is untouchable inside the black box. You can't negotiate with it. If you take a sick day, the AI doesn't see a human who needs rest. It sees a supply chain node operating at 0%, and you are just left in the dark. But this goes beyond a bad HR policy. This is a fundamental threat to human free will. What does human agency actually require? True free will requires a predictable environment, the ability to make an informed choice. If I tell you, press the red button for a cookie, press the blue button for an electric shock, you can exercise your free will. You choose the cookie. But what if the rules change randomly every 5 seconds and I don't tell you? Then your choice doesn't matter. It's just a gamble. If the rules governing your livelihood alter unpredictably within a black box matrix, your free choice is fundamentally eroded. You are just reacting blindly. We always thought the threat of AI would be Terminator robots. The real threat is optimization software quietly stripping away our free will. And nobody is talking about it. It's a frog in a boiling pot situation. It happens gradually, one software update at a time, changing the goalposts of your survival. So how do we fix it? There is a massive push right now for algorithmic explainability. We have to legally mandate that an algorithm cannot be a pure black box. If an AI makes a decision that impacts your livelihood, it must output a human-readable explanation of exactly why. You need to regain your agency. We have to force power to be re-embedded into a human context. We need humans in the loop. The right to appeal a machine's decision to a real person. It's a new labor movement. Instead of fighting for an 8-hour workday, we are fighting for the right to be managed by an organism with a heartbeat. The 21st century labor struggle is going to be humans fighting to remain human in a system perfectly designed for machines. So next time your human boss micromanages you or sighs heavily in a meeting, maybe give them a hug or just appreciate them. At least they have a pulse, and at least you can still bribe them with a decent cup of coffee. Thanks for tuning in to The Static Frontier. We'll be back next week to explore another invisible force shaping your world. Until then, stay human and hit subscribe to stay notified when new video comes out. If you enjoyed this, we've turned it into a full podcast. Search for The Static Frontier on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. New episodes drop every week exploring the tech and science mysteries you never knew existed.